It's been over 2.5 years since the October 7th attacks on Israel, killing 1,200 people and kidnapping hundreds more. One of those kidnapped was Hersh Goldberg-Polin. A 23-year-old American Israeli, Hersh was attending the Nova Music Festival when he was taken by Hamas militants from this bomb shelter. He was held captive in a tunnel for 328 days before being murdered.
Hersh, if you can hear us, we love you.
His mom, Rachel Goldberg-Polin, fought publicly for his and other hostages' release, including on this program. Rachel Goldberg, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
She's now written about her time fighting for her son and her family's experience in a new book, When We See You Again. Rachel Goldberg-Polin, thank you for joining me. Nice to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
I spoke with you and your husband during Hersh's captivity and through this incredibly difficult period in your lives, which continues now in a different way. The book is, as I said to you before the interview, very, very raw. And I wondered why you felt so strongly that you wanted to write a book about, not only about Hersh, but about this period in your family's life.
The truth is, I wasn't writing it as a book. I was writing it as almost as a way of doing the Heimlich maneuver on myself. I felt like I was choking and drowning in suffering and pain and loss and mourning, which so many people are familiar with. I'm not unique. I'm not the only person to bury a child. There are millions of people who have buried children. There are so many people who are watching this segment who have buried children. There are people who've buried other people who are integral and core to the DNA of how we identify ourselves in this world. And this enormous Herculean pain was actually causing my body to buckle from the weight. And so the writing was a way of getting out and trying very specifically to explain and describe just for myself what is this agony and misery that I'm experiencing. And it ended up being something that I wasn't expecting, because we've heard from thousands of people all over the world from all different backgrounds and all different worldviews and philosophies and textures and colors and brands of, wow, this is what it's like. And I think that there is room for people to hear it, even though, as you said, it is not an easy read. I mean, it was not an easy write.
Yeah. Well, and nor should it be an easy read. That you're writing about something that is so traumatic. And yes, you're right. Lots of people have experienced things, but you experienced this all very publicly because of what happened to Hersh, but also because of your decision and your husband's decision to sort of become advocates for him and for other hostages. And in the book, you write about the before and the after. And here you are sharing this pain and the grief, and I wonder what has come back to you from that. You talk about the people reaching out to you. What has that come back as to you?
I think it's just this unifying glue, actually, of pain that part of the human enterprise is that we are going to have, on the one hand, we're going to have beauty and joy and laughter and blessings and gorgeousness in our lives here. And we are going to have loss and pain and suffering and grief. And it is that experience, that very human experience of pain that strangely and maybe oxymoronically is the very thing that can also really hold us together and bring us together. Because when you are in such throes of challenge, you do seek others, I think. I can really only speak for myself. I wasn't actively going out saying, let me find other people who are feeling like this, but we just had this recently. Actually, I was in New York because the book just launched recently, and there was an interview that we did, and we were leaving the building, and someone said, wait, and this man came running out, and he was one of the production people. He wasn't an anchor. He wasn't a known entity to us. And he grabbed my arm and he was crying and he said, "You said it. You said it." And I just thought it was so interesting. He was suffering. And it was just this moment of connection. And then John and I got in the elevator and he was there, the doors closed and we left, but it was this human interaction on the most primal level of loss.
In the book, you have, as you say, it is very raw, but there are some moments of light, and one of them through the man named Or, who you meet, who spent time in captivity with Hersh, and that is how you are given this picture into what that time was like. What was it like, or how valuable was it to know about some of those moments from Or about Hersh?
For us, honestly, Rosemary, it was life-changing. I will never forget the hours of the evening of 496 days after October 7th happened, when John and I were called to be in the hospital where Or Levy was was recuperating from his captivity. He had just been released 5 days prior. And he asked to meet us, and we had no idea why. And it turns out that he had been held for a time in his captivity with Hersh, and he started to share with us. And remember, we knew nothing from when Hersh was stolen on the morning of October 7th from this musical festival that had been advertised for love, light, and peace. And all we knew is that his dominant left arm had been blown off. His best friend that he had attended the festival with had been killed, and Hersh had been taken. And for 330 days after that, we knew nothing. We were in complete darkness. It was a slow motion, taffy labyrinth of torture for us, as any parent can imagine. And then we had to bury Hersh because he was killed in captivity. And then we had 150 days of complete and utter darkness within darkness within darkness. And then we met Or, which that name in Hebrew means light. And we had this shaft of light given by this young man who came back, who told us all of these stories about Hersh and what Hersh had said to Or and what Or had experienced with Hersh during those days they were held together. And that evening was an inflection point for the rest of our lives. We will be different people because of what he shared with us. And so we walked out of that hospital with illumination that we didn't imagine we could have in the rest of this life that we are living without Hersh in it.
Well, one of the things that you found out is that Hersh knew how hard you were fighting to have him released, or tells you that he heard your voice on the radio, that you had talked to the Secretary of State. I wonder how that is for you, knowing that he knew how hard you were all working to get him out.
I mean, we had assumed, I remember a few days after October 7th saying, these hostages probably think that the whole world has been destroyed. Like, who knows what information they're being given? They're in the depths of the bowels of these catacombic tunnels. They're getting no information. And so I thought how horrifying they must be in this place of unknowing. And I thought Hersh was broken. he must be broken. He saw his best friend blown up in front of him. He saw 18 people killed in this tiny 8 foot by 5 foot space. His arm was blown off. I just assumed he knew nothing. And then to hear after all of that time, after almost 500 days, to hear Or saying to me, he pointed right in my face. It was right at the end. We had been with him for several hours, and it was coming time for us to have to leave because the doctor actually came in and said, it's enough, people. Like, he's recovering. He was only 50 kilo, and he's, like 1.85 meters. I mean, he was in very physical, fragile shape, not to mention emotional, psychological, and mental. Or said, no, I need more time with them. And he points at me and he says, he heard you. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, he heard your voice. There was a radio that the captors were listening to, and he was in the next room, and he suddenly heard your voice. And he heard you talking about where you and John were going, who you were talking with, what you were doing, and how hard you guys were working to get him home. He knew. And all of a sudden, I was given this flutter of permission to know that this child, this boy, my only son, my eldest child, the person who turned me from what I had been before he was born into mother, changed my DNA in this universe. Mm-hmm. He knew that we were fighting for him. And that, I don't know how to describe that, but there was something in that was the most generous kindness that any person ever gave me was what Orr gave me that night.
Mm-hmm. You became, as I said, an activist for your son and for really all hostages. When in the book you goes through all the things you did, you spoke to so many leaders, you spoke at the UN, you tried everything you could to try to get people to help. But I still don't know, Rachel, whether you are angry or disappointed with the lack of action from political leaders. You were banging down doors, and lots of people said, we'll try to help you, and some people tried and some people didn't. And I wonder what is your reflection about that?
I think that there was certainly disappointment in a lot of people who were influential, powerful people who chose not to do things that could have made this much different. But I also happen to be someone who's a very religious person. So while I don't give a pass to people who do the wrong things or make a bad choice or have different values than I think are important, I also very much believe that I believe in this idea of God, and I believe that even though I don't like the plan, I hate that Hersh isn't here. I hate it. I think that's allowed. You can believe that there's a plan, that there's someone driving the bus, that there's a tapestry, that we are not privy to see the entire masterpiece that's in front of us. And you can say, I don't like this part. And I certainly hate that Hersh is not here. But I also, it's bigger than people who are decision makers and leaders who made choices that perhaps I would not have made.
Yeah. Do you allow yourself to think about how proud Hersh would have been or is of you, what he would have thought of this? It is a beautifully written book, what he would have thought of this book.
I wonder. I think that, I'm constantly in conversation with Hersh. I think something that I've learned is that, love is stronger than death, and love is stronger than time. And so my love for Hersh continues to grow and evolve eternally, constantly. It's like ivy. It's like this wildly unwieldy emotion. And I love that about love. And I think that I wonder what Hersh would think about this. I do think he would just, first of all, I think he would have been very embarrassed about a lot of the things that we did trying to, go to the ends of the earth. He was relieved and happy about it. We know that from Orr, but also, there were so many things that we did that I'm sure he would have said, "Hey, Mama, why'd you have to tell that story or share that picture or make that, sign?" I do think that, the construct is different for us. Normally we have children and our children, when I was growing up and I would do things that I would hope my parents would be proud, I would turn around and think like, here's what I did. Are you proud of me? And now we have to do that in the reverse. There's a disorder, an unorderliness about what is happening now, which is I'm looking and saying, Hersh, look what we're trying to do. And so, for sure now, trying desperately to make a revolution for good in his memory, in his absence.
Rachel, it was very nice to speak with you, and the book is, as I said, it's raw, but it is beautifully written, and well worth people reading. Thank you for making the time for us.
Thank you, Rosemary, for carving out the time for me. I appreciate it.